I started playing Warcraft during the last raid tier of BFA, and I almost immediately joined a guild called Mythic Friends. I had played a couple of dungeons with these guys, run through time walking at the time, and had a pretty decent time with them. They invited me to their Discord, and I was a mage for their little mythic keystone team. And we never did anything big. We fives, tens was the biggest we ever did. Nobody was trying to get KSM or KSH or try and be in the top 100 or whatever. We just ran through dungeons. We timed keys. We didn't time keys. We had a grand old time. It was a lot of fun, and I thoroughly enjoyed the time that we spent because that's what I was looking for. At the time, I had been playing Rainbow Six Siege for roughly 2,000 hours up to that point, and uh, I had a team in Rainbow that I'd put together that started to fall apart around that time. The community that I had built around us playing Siege was not really doing so hot, and I wanted a game for uh, being sociable, for having friends to be able to play with, because IRL, I had no one, and I was turning to video games to try to fill the social void that I had. I hate being alone. I've said that several times on this channel. I cannot stand being alone. Um, I cannot sleep without noise. I cannot work alone. I would rather, work with at least a helper, somebody around, because it just, I don't know, it's a phobia, I guess. But video games were my go-to to break the silence, to actually have people around. And Siege didn't work out, thought Warcraft would, and it did for a while. But as time went on, the Mythic Friends Guild started to fall apart. They started to go and do their own separate things. I guess growing up, quitting playing video games, maybe because of the fatigue with BFA that everybody seemed to be having. Uh, we stopped playing that expansion, and eventually I was by myself again. And I had to find somebody else. I had to find some community to join and people to talk to in Discord. So I joined a raiding guild, and I've mentioned them before as well. And it worked out for a while, but something felt different about these particular people, this particular group. Um, there was more of an emphasis on doing more keys, of doing bigger raids, and having higher difficulty to the content that we were running. And it was okay. I've never really done a heroic raid. I've never really done above a plus 10 keystone. It'd be interesting to try it out. Broadening experience, as Buster Keaton would say. And so I was game for it. Um, but with advancing difficulty come the advancing expectations of everybody performing. And it didn't take long for me to notice the exclusivity of performing at a high standard in Warcraft and doing the deeper content, the higher difficulty content, where if you know that this guy doesn't do as high of damage as these, but I like that guy. Why are we excluding this friendly person and taking these three people who don't really know, don't really talk, don't really interact with? And that's whenever I started to realize that Warcraft has a very transactional system to the relationships that people develop in the game. Um, the competitive nature of Warcraft at the level that I've been playing at for about 2 years now has made me realize that people get shunned whenever they are not performing at parse level, blue parse, purple parse, uh, and that, in my opinion, is what makes the game suck. Siege, to draw a comparison, has a very competitive player base. I mean, for goodness sake, more people play ranked than the other two modes. And, if you know that you're going to be trying to push platinum, push diamond, push emerald, whatever rank you might be trying to push. You're going to try and bring a team that can back you up as you try to push that rank. You're going to bring people that you know can help you hit platinum. And whatever other rank it is you might be trying to push, you're not going to bring a copper to a squad with 4 emeralds. That's not ideal for trying to push your rank. And so people get shunned in Siege, and that's one of my big complaints about it. I do not believe in playing that way. Got several friends that I've been trying to introduce to the game, newer players who do not have the years of map knowledge that I do and the years of the meta understanding that I do. And I've been trying to teach them how to play the game. And there's one particular friend that I've got who absolutely sucks. If, if he doesn't get a frost mat kill or a capcan trap kill, he's not going to kill anyone. He cannot fire his gun to save his life. His reaction time is like 5 to 10 seconds long in a game where you've got to have reaction within a couple tenths of a second. Being slightly exaggerating about how slow he is, but he fucking sucks in a gunfight. And that's okay. I bring him anyways, and I play with him anyways because I like the guy. I've known the guy for years, and I would definitely rather play with him and lose than play by myself and win. Because to me, playing video games alone is pointless. It's like masturbation. You're playing by yourself, but damn, it's really not intended to be single player. I do not understand the psychology of single player games. Yes, it's fun, but what is it for? You accomplish something fantastic in the game. Anybody see that? Nope. Guess just me. Yay. Yay for me. I don't understand single player games. I realize it's fun for some people. So is whacking off. But, you know, kind of doesn't have as much value or as much meaning if there's not somebody else in the room. If there's not somebody else with you. And Warcraft is getting to a point, has gotten to a point, has long been at a point where I think that if a solo version of the game came out where you're just playing by yourself, nobody else is online, it's just you against all of the dungeons, all of the raids, you can solo all of the content, you can solo a Mythic 20, you can solo a Mythic raid, the online version of the game would just immediately die. Everybody would move over to the single player version. They'd play that for a few weeks until they realized, wow, Warcraft is actually not a very good game. It looks like trash. The graphics are from decades ago. The gameplay loop is really not very satisfying. Mechanics are muddled and overly unnecessarily complex. Yeah, Warcraft sucks. It's really not a great game. It's kind of frustrating. Um, and so they'd quit. They'd quit playing once they realized that playing by yourself is just garbage. But it seems like so many people prefer to play the game that way, not realizing just how ridiculous that is. I look at, the guilds that I've been a member of in the past and how there was so much fragmentation and so much exclusivity and so many cliques within these groups that you're basically like trying to piss up a rope if you're trying to get into a group that is running a keystone because they don't want you because they know that you don't parse purple every single time. And they know that, if you're a new player, God forbid you even be anywhere near them because you're not going to know the optimal path through the dungeon and know which mob to CC and all that sort of thing. So you're not allowed to play with them rather than taking time to teach. And that unnecessarily competitive mindset towards the game is fostered by the game itself. I mean, Mythic 20s exist, Race to World First exists, Top 100 exists. And so, yeah, it's not entirely the player base's fault because the game has been set up so that everybody gets super competitive and doesn't allow new players in with them. Doesn't allow inexperienced or old players in with them. I say that fully knowing that, the vast majority of the player base is a bunch of midlife crisis people who've got the one ever-present screaming kid in the background being neglected while, you playing a video game instead of taking care of your kids. But, that's neither here nor there. Regardless, it's still a very hyper-competitive game, and I don't like the attitude that that brings from the player base, where you can't play unless you are parsing purple, and you can't play unless you know the optimal path. You can't play unless you have, bottomless gold to be able to go and buy all the food and the potions and the flasks that you have to be able to make a perfect run. It really became extremely frustrating whenever I was trying to do weekly community raids. That was something I did back whenever Aberrus was new, and we hadn't run it for the 200th time, and I was sick of hearing all the dialogue lines. uh, Whenever we would, finally approach the weekend, I would make a group. I would call it, you know, Aberrus for Noobs or Noob Training Raid or something to that effect. And the only requirement that I had, besides obviously the base minimum item level, because you don't want people getting smoked as soon as the boss, says something. The only requirement I had was that people join the Discord and people listen to callouts, and I would direct people through the fight, and I would call things out before they happened, and I would teach people how to do the fight. That was what I wanted to do. And we had a mixed bag of a whole lot of different players. There would be some players who, you look them up on the tracker websites. I forget them now. It's been so long since I've played WoW. They'd have orange parses for every boss. And then we'd have players who had never played in a raid before. This was their first time, and that was really my target audience. So I was very happy to have them around. But then we go to fight the boss. Obviously, we wipe because half the group doesn't know the fight yet, and immediately 3 people leave. And I'm sitting there wondering, why did you join? I plainly said exactly what we're doing. This is a noob training raid. And I realize, most people just apply to groups without even reading the description, which is annoying. Uh, but heck, just trying to build the group. And the one requirement, the single requirement that I had, join the Discord, listen to callouts. You don't have to speak, you don't have to have a mic. Um, People would join, and then they'd get mad that I'm requiring a Discord, and they'd leave immediately because they don't want to join the VC. They don't want to be around other people, other people playing a social game with other people. What is this, communist China? So that really kind of set me on a path to not liking Warcraft as much as I had been, because it seemed like, as hard as I'm pushing to try to develop a community, as hard as I'm pushing to try to bring players in, where I can not have to sit in my apartment for 3 days straight listening to the sound of my own breathing and my own heartbeat echoing off my 4 beige walls, didn't matter. The game is now fighting me. The community is now fighting me. I cannot get people to join and stay for the people that are there and to be able to play the game in a social setting. Now we got to be perfect. Now we got to be one-shotting every boss. Now we can't have anybody making mistakes to satisfy the collective. And so I have since stopped doing community raids. I've since stopped raiding in Warcraft. Since stopped playing Warcraft, except with a few very specific people that still play the game and play a lot of other games with us, and generally I like hanging out with, because they get the point of video games. We got a lot of crap that we do as adults that is unsavory and have to deal with a lot of people who are unsavory. But in a video game, whether it's WoW or Siege or, you know, garbage games like Sunken Land or Gang Beasts or other games that really, suck even with a group, let alone by yourself, they understand that the reason that we're there is so that we don't have to think about the crap that we're doing out on a job site or at the office or in any other setting. We're playing a video game, we're having a good time with each other, and we're able to escape. And it's what Warcraft, as far as I understand, used to be. Because whenever you listen to an old Warcraft player, they'll talk about, ICC or Temple of Ahn'Qiraj or whatever, grand thing they did back in the day was. But most of the stories that they have about whatever setting that might be in is about the team that they had, about the players that they had. We had this one really strong tank Jehoshaphat, Jumpin' Jehoshaphat was his name. I knew his mother. She was a magnificent woman, and he tanked the Lich King for us, and he was a really good tank, really good guy. Loved throwing watermelons at the neighbor's house with him. We hung out a lot. They'll talk about the players that they used to play with. They won't talk about the raid by itself on its own, because as far as I can tell, Warcraft used to be a lot more of a social game than it is now. I know that it still used to be competitive. I mean, you still hit world first. My uncle actually, he raided back in Wrath of the Lich King in Ulduar, and his raid crew was about 10 minutes from getting the world first kill on Yogg-Saron. So yeah, I'm aware that there used to be world firsts and a little bit of competition back then. But it still seemed like, from what I've heard from older players who've been with the game for longer, because obviously I haven't been in it for long, but BFA is very recent. It used to be a lot more of a tight knit community, a lot more of a social game. Okay, there goes TikTok for some reason. And that is something that I wish it was now. I'm sad that I missed so much of the game's history, because I missed the best part of the community's evolution, of when people used to play the game because they were playing with other people. The novelty of being able to drop into a raid and there's 40 other people there, 40 other unique individuals, all united around a common goal, is gone. It's ubiquitous now. Whenever Warcraft came out and the Molten Core raid was introduced, apparently that was like one of the first times you were able to get that many people in the same lobby. And it was cool. There was a novelty to it. It was unique. It was exciting. It was fun. It was nice to have 39 other people doing something with you. But now, people join a group and then they immediately start looking up everybody else on Raider.io to make sure that they're joining the optimal lobby and that there's nobody here who is even remotely inexperienced in this. Not got the best in slot items in every slot. You don't have your flask enabled right now. Oh, wait a minute. You do, but it's got 3 minutes left on the cooldown, buddy. You better refresh it right now, because I swear to God, if it goes off during the boss fight and you don't have that extra little, 10 DPS, well, y'all just are not good enough for me to grace you with my presence. I hate it. And the worst part of it is I've contributed to it. Save this for last, because it's embarrassing to admit that whenever I realized that this is how the Warcraft community works, I was kind of already used to it. I already kind of had the mindset for that because of leading a team in Siege and understanding the whole pick and choose who you run with mentality to try to optimize, because that's present in Siege whenever you're trying to push ranked. And so, as a guild leader in Warcraft, I thought, okay, well, if this is what everybody's expecting, let me do this. Let me be this kind of guild leader. Let me be this kind of raid leader. Let me be exclusive. Let me make sure that I'm bringing the people that I know can do the job. I know can kill the boss. This guy doesn't know exactly what he's doing. I'll bring him on a community raid. I won't bring him for guild prog. And so people that I enjoyed hanging out with, people that I enjoyed talking to, people that I liked having around in the Discord are no longer around, because I fell into the competitive exclusivity bullshit. And it's one of my biggest regrets in Warcraft. So, with that being said, I've been thinking about that today, because Warcraft is currently in a slump content-wise. You got 10.2 coming up, the Emerald Dream and all that sort of thing, and I'll get back into it whenever that comes out, try and reassemble people, try and bait them in by saying, oh yes, content, alluring people to try and come into Discord so that I can talk to somebody. Using a video game as bait. So that I don't have to be alone. Kind of always what I've used it for, just never really phrased it that way. Anyways, y'all have a good